Ryan Clark made the most outrageous comments about RG3's white wife.
He's not having conversations at his home about what black women have to endure. You haven't been able to do that because in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women.
RG3 exploded back.
Wives and children are always off limits, and Ryan Clark has sprinted past that line.
Two former NFL stars and ESPN colleagues, once teammates on the Washington Redskins, now locked in a bitter public feud that quickly turned deeply personal. Did Clark cross an unforgivable line? Is this really about sports analysis or something deeper? Let's break it all down. The sports take that sparked the fire. Our story begins on May 20th, 2025, during what should have been a routine WNBA game. The basketball world was watching as two of the most talked about players in the league, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, faced off on the court. During this game, Clark committed what was ruled a flagrant foul on Reese, and the aftermath of this play would become the catalyst for our entire controversy. Shortly after the game, RG3, the former NFL quarterback and current Fox Sports analyst, took to X, formerly Twitter, with his opinion on the interaction between the two WNBA stars. In his post, he stated quite boldly, after watching Caitlin Clark's flagrant foul on Angel Reese in the aftermath, there is no way Angel Reese can continue the lie that she doesn't dislike Caitlin Clark. I know what hatred looks like. Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, not some basketball rivalry hate either. Hate. This was a pretty strong statement from RG3, who was essentially claiming to know the emotions and intentions of Angel Reese based on her reactions during the game. He wasn't just suggesting a competitive rivalry. He was explicitly stating that Reese harbored genuine hatred for Clark. For context, the rivalry between Reese and Clark has been a major storyline in the WNBA. Their history dates back to their college days when Reese's LSU team defeated Clark's Iowa team in the NCAA championship game. That game featured a moment when Reese made the "you can't see me" gesture toward Clark, which went viral and has fueled discussions about their relationship ever since they both entered the WNBA. RG3's take was certainly provocative, but it wasn't entirely unexpected given his role as a sports analyst, where bold opinions often generate engagement and discussion. However, what came next elevated this from a routine sports debate to something much more personal. Ryan Clark, a former NFL safety and current ESPN analyst, decided to respond to RG3's comments about Reese and Clark. But rather than simply disagreeing with RG3's assessment of the situation, Clark took his response in a direction that many viewers found surprising and controversial.
The one thing we know about RG3 is he's not having conversations at his home about what black women have to endure in this country, about what young black women and athletes like Angel Reese have had to deal with being on the opposite side of Caitlin Clark's rise and ascension into stardom. Now, when you look at it, I think A'ja Wilson is the face of the league. A'ja Wilson is the best player in the league. Caitlin Clark is the most important player in the WNBA. And a ton of her fandom has come along with some racial bias or some racial pieces to why people love her so much. And so now if you're RG3, when is the last time within your household you've had a conversation about what she's dealing with? You haven't been able to do that because in both of your marriages, you've been married to white women.
Clark's comments on his podcast, The Pivot, weren't just questioning RG3's sports take. They were suggesting that RG3's marriage to a white woman, Greta Griffin, might limit his understanding of black women's struggles, particularly in the context of Reese's experiences. This was a dramatic escalation that shifted the conversation from basketball analysis to RG3's personal life and racial identity. Clark went on to make additional comments about RG3, claiming that when they worked together at ESPN, RG3 would make all of these sort of corny jokes about milk and how much he loved it and how important it was, and that he always points out on social media the color of his wife's skin as if the color of her skin is what makes her special, as if the color of her skin is what makes her a good wife. These comments from Clark were interpreted by many as an attack not just on RG3's sports analysis, but on his interracial marriage and how he expresses his identity as a black man. The implication seemed to be that RG3 might be disconnected from certain aspects of black culture or the black experience because of his personal choices. To fully understand why Ryan Clark's comments hit such a nerve with RG3, we need to examine some historical context. This wasn't the first time RG3 had faced scrutiny over his interracial marriage. Back in 2012, when RG3 was still a quarterback for the Washington Redskins, now Commanders, ESPN commentator Rob Parker questioned RG3's blackness due to his engagement to a white woman, Rebecca Liddicoat, his first wife, labeling him a cornball brother. Parker's comments led to his suspension and eventually his dismissal from ESPN. So when Ryan Clark made similar comments about RG3's current marriage to another white woman, Greta Griffin, it would have likely felt like a painful replay of criticism he had faced earlier in his career. This historical context helps explain why RG3 responded so forcefully to Clark's comments. Additionally, it's worth noting that RG3 and Ryan Clark were briefly teammates on the Washington Redskins in 2014, a period that was reportedly marked by tensions within the team. In 2015, after retiring, Clark appeared on the Mike and Mike radio show and commented that RG3 doesn't have meaningful locker room relationships, suggesting a professional critique that predated their current feud. As clips from Clark's podcast began circulating on social media, the public reaction was swift and mixed. Some viewers supported Clark's perspective, suggesting that he was highlighting important issues about race and representation in sports. One ex-user posted, "Glad Ryan Clark accurately and politely dragged RG3's weird," indicating agreement with Clark's assessment. Another wrote, "Ryan Clark cooked TF out of RG3. Called him a C00N in long-form LMAO, suggesting approval for Clark's critique. However, many others felt that Clark had crossed a line by bringing RG3's family into what should have been a discussion about basketball. They argued that criticizing someone's interracial marriage or questioning their racial identity based on who they married was inappropriate and potentially harmful. The Outkick article published on May 20th, 2025, stated that Clark owes RG3 an apology for mentioning his wife's race, describing the comments as wrong and by definition racist. The article also noted that RG3's points about the Reese-Clark dynamic were hard to dispute, and that he should be allowed to critique Reese's actions regardless of his race. The Daily Mail reported that Clark's comments sparked fury on social media, with some questioning whether ESPN should fire him. This indicates just how quickly the controversy escalated from a sports debate to questions about professional consequences. What's particularly interesting about this initial phase of the controversy is how quickly it moved from the actual basketball discussion, whether Angel Reese genuinely dislikes Caitlin Clark, to much broader and more personal issues about race, identity, and marriage. The sports take that sparked the conversation almost immediately became secondary to these larger societal questions. RG3 fires back, personal attacks, and escalation. After hearing Ryan Clark's comments about his marriage and supposed disconnection from black women's experiences, RG3 was clearly angered and hurt. He responded with a lengthy video posted to social media that addressed Clark's comments directly and forcefully.
Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy RG3, and I just wanted to get on here and talk to you guys because there's been a lot of buzz, a lot of conversations about my sports take that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark, which was purely based in basketball. But I think all of you know there's a line in life that you just simply don't cross.
In this passionate video response, RG3 made it clear that he felt Clark had violated an unwritten rule by bringing his family into what should have been a professional disagreement.
Wives and children are always off limits, and Ryan Clark has sprinted past that line. Ryan Clark didn't like my sports take that Angel Reese hates Caitlin Clark.
Griffin emphasized that his original take on the Reese-Clark dynamic was purely based on basketball and Reese's on-court actions, not anything personal. He pointed out that he had given 5 examples that showcased what he perceived as Reese's dislike for Clark. For RG3, this was simply part of sports analysis, examining the actions and body language of athletes to draw conclusions about their relationships and motivations.
And I based it purely off of her actions on the court and in press conferences. It wasn't just because of the hard flagrant foul in their opening game. I gave 5 examples that showcased Angel Reese's dislike for Caitlin Clark.
What seemed to bother RG3 most was the racial component of Clark's criticism. He directly addressed this aspect in his response.
I think this has to be said because a lot of what Ryan Clark said was so racially based, it was uncomfortable. Just because Angel Reese is a black woman doesn't mean that a black man or a black woman who happens to be an analyst can't give their opinion on her game. Just because Angel Reese is a black woman doesn't mean that a black man or a black woman cannot critique her game.
RG3 further elaborated on this point, arguing that analysts should be judged on the merit of their opinions, not the color of their skin or whom they choose to marry.
To be quite frank, a black man or a black woman can critique anybody's game just the same as a white man or a white woman can critique anybody's game. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, regardless of the color of skin that somebody is. And if you don't like that opinion, that's fine.
But the most emotionally charged portions of RG3's response came when he directly addressed Clark's comments about his marriage and family.
Because if you need to cross that line and attack the person, then you've already lost. You've already lost whatever it is that you think that you're trying to win. Ryan Clark said, "I don't understand the struggles of black women because my wife is white.
RG3 clearly felt that Clark had not only crossed a professional line, but had made deeply hurtful and unfair assumptions about his marriage and family life.
That is so wrong, way out of bounds. He suggested that I don't value my own wife, the one that I'm building a family with, the one that I protect, the one that I love and cherish, but that I only value her because her skin is white. That is so wrong and way out of bounds.
RG3 also emphasized that, contrary to Clark's implications, he is surrounded by black women in his life and is raising black daughters.
Not to mention that we also raise black daughters, that I have a black mom, 2 black sisters, black aunties, black cousins, a black niece. That makes 0 sense.
This powerful rebuttal from RG3 resonated with many viewers who felt that Clark had indeed crossed the line by making assumptions about RG3's personal life and racial identity based on his marriage. RG3's response highlighted the complexity and sensitivity of discussions about interracial relationships and how people navigate their racial identity within them. Rather than de-escalating the situation after RG3's emotional response, Ryan Clark doubled down. He called RG3 a phony and a bad teammate in subsequent ex-posts and interviews, referencing their time together on the Washington Redskins in 2014 and their shared tenure at ESPN from 2021 to 2024. Clark claimed, "I saved you the entire season on MNF. I urged people to let you be you. No matter how corny, how bad a teammate you were, I had your back," suggesting that he had previously defended RG3 professionally despite having issues with him as a colleague. In clarifying his initial comments, Clark insisted, "I didn't attack your wife. I spoke on what you do on social media and TV," attempting to draw a distinction between criticizing RG3's public behavior and attacking his wife directly. However, many viewers felt this distinction was meaningless given the nature of Clark's original comments. This back and forth exchange quickly escalated from a disagreement about basketball analysis to personal attacks about character, professional relationships, and racial identity. What had started as a sports debate had become a deeply personal feud playing out in the public eye. As mentioned earlier, RG3 had previously faced criticism from ESPN commentator Rob Parker in 2012, who questioned his blackness due to his first marriage to a white woman. Other public figures like Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, conservative commentator Candace Owens, and ESPN's Sage Steele have faced similar scrutiny over their interracial relationships or perceived alignment with predominantly white institutions. As the feud between RG3 and Ryan Clark intensified, sports media outlets quickly picked up the story, with many expressing concern about the personal nature of the attacks. Outkick published an article on May 20th, 2025, stating that Clark owes RG3 an apology for mentioning his wife's race, describing the comments as wrong and by definition racist. The article argued that RG3's points about the Reese-Clark dynamic were hard to dispute, and that he should be allowed to critique Reese's actions regardless of his race. Sports Illustrated described the feud as unseemly and noted that it had gone public and gotten personal, indicating discomfort with how the professional disagreement had devolved into personal attacks. The Daily Mail reported that Clark's comments sparked fury on social media, with some questioning whether ESPN should fire him, highlighting the potential professional consequences of such controversial statements. While there were some calls for ESPN to take action against Clark, no official statements or actions from the network were reported in the immediate aftermath of the controversy. This lack of response from ESPN itself became part of the ongoing conversation, with some critics suggesting that the network should address the situation more directly. For both RG3 and Ryan Clark, this public feud represents a significant moment in their post-playing careers as sports analysts. Both men have worked hard to establish themselves as credible voices in sports media, with RG3 currently at Fox Sports and Clark at ESPN. RG3's NFL career began with high promise when he was drafted second overall by the Washington Redskins in 2012, winning the Heisman Trophy and setting league records for the highest rookie passer rating and touchdown-interception ratio in his debut season. However, a severe knee injury during the 2012 playoffs derailed his career, impacting his mobility and performance. After stints with the Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens, he retired in 2021 and transitioned to broadcasting, first with ESPN and now with Fox Sports. Ryan Clark had a successful NFL career as a safety, playing for teams including the Pittsburgh Steelers, with whom he won a Super Bowl in 2009. After retiring in 2015, he became an ESPN analyst and has been a prominent figure on shows like Monday Night Countdown and SportsCenter with SVP. He also hosts the Pivot podcast, known for its analytical and in-depth discussions. For both men, their credibility as analysts is tied not just to their football knowledge, but also to their public personas and how they engage engage in sports discourse. This feud, with its personal attacks and racial overtones, potentially impacts how viewers perceive them and their analysis moving forward. Public reaction and broader implications. As clips and reports of the feud spread across social media and sports news outlets, public opinion quickly divided into several camps, reflecting the complex nature of the issues at play. Some viewers firmly supported Ryan Clark, seeing his comments as highlighting important issues about race and representation in sports. They interpreted Clark's critique as a necessary call-out of what they perceived as RG3's disconnection from certain aspects of the Black experience. One ex-user wrote, "The way these internet receipts are out here on RG3, he should have sat there and ate his food. Ryan Clark accurately called him out, and now RG3 wants to cry about it." Another commented, "Ryan Clark cooked TF out of RG3. Nick called him a C00N in long-form El Mao, indicating strong approval for Clark's critique." Others voiced strong support for RG3, arguing that Clark had crossed the line by bringing RG3's family into what should have been a professional disagreement. An ex-post by @Outkick360 noted, "RGE snapped back at Ryan Clark after Clark got too personal. We discussed on Hot Mic," indicating support for RG3's retaliation. Another ex-user @Byron627777726 felt Clark had overstepped, posting, "Ryan Clark crosses the line in beef with RG3 over Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese." This sentiment was echoed by many who believe that criticizing someone's interracial marriage or questioning their racial identity based on who they married was inappropriate and potentially harmful. The divided reaction reflected broader societal tensions about race, identity, and the boundaries of public discourse. It also highlighted the complex ways in which people navigate these issues in their personal and professional lives. Sports media outlets provided extensive coverage of the feud, with many expressing concern about the personal nature of the attacks, while also using the controversy to explore deeper issues about race and representation in sports. Fox News covered the story with the headline, "ESPN's Ryan Clark evokes RG3's marriage after ex-NFL star weighs in on Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese," highlighting the personal nature of Clark's comments. Sports Illustrated described the feud as unseemly and noted that it had gone public and gotten personal, indicating discomfort with how the professional disagreement had devolved into personal attacks. The Daily Mail's coverage emphasized the emotional impact of the controversy, with headlines like, "Furious wife of Robert Griffin III explodes at Ryan Clark after his insults about their interracial marriage," highlighting how the feud had extended to involve family members. Yahoo News characterized the escalation with the headline, "You're a phony, bro. Ryan Clark and RG3's feud over Angel Reese turns personal," focusing on the increasingly hostile nature of the exchange. The Hindustan Times provided an international perspective with its article, "Ryan Clark versus Robert Griffin III controversy explained, who said what?" indicating the global reach of this American sports media controversy. These varied headlines and approaches to covering the story reflect both the sensational nature of the feud and the serious underlying issues it raised about race, identity, and professional boundaries in sports media. One particularly interesting analysis of the controversy came in the form of a YouTube video titled "Black Fatigue: Why Caitlin Clark, RG3, and Ryan Clark perfectly showcase this phenomenon." This video introduced the concept of black fatigue as a lens through which to understand the controversy.
So it seems like if anyone doesn't meet your standard, do we include any black people who engage in interracial relationships? The black fatigue, it doesn't end with white people. It ends with black Americans who think it's okay to date white women, even if it's a Kardashian.
According to the video, black fatigue is defined as deep mental exhaustion from being forced to care about black people and their actions 24/7. The video suggests that this phenomenon extends beyond white people to include black Americans who think it's okay to date white women, implying that black individuals who date or marry outside their race face scrutiny and criticism from within the black community. This video represents just one perspective on the controversy, but it highlights how the RG3 Clark feud tapped into broader cultural conversations about racial identity, authenticity, and the complex ways in which people navigate these issues in their personal and professional lives. The feud also generated significant discussion in online communities like Reddit, where users debated the merits of both RG3 and Ryan Clark as sports analysts and weighed in on their recent controversy. One Reddit thread titled "First Take, RG3 is Great" showcased these diverse opinions. Some users ranked Clark higher than RG3 in terms of analytical ability, with one user, Telepol2023, placing 1, Ryan Clark Clark 2, Kimberly Martin 3, RG3 4, Dan Orlovsky 5, Swagu 6, Shannon Sharp 7, Jeff Saturday. Others were more critical of RG3 with comments like, RG3 is the worst thing about ESPN. He's usually wrong while calling games and his analysis is often flawed. I find his jokes so damn cringy I have to text my cousins to complain whenever he lets one fly. He's pretty embarrassing. For the networks employing RG3, Fox Sports, and Ryan Clark, ESPN, this public feud represented a potential public relations challenge. While there were some calls for ESPN to take action against Clark, no official statements or actions from either network were reported in the immediate aftermath of the controversy. The silence from the networks themselves became part of the ongoing conversation, with some critics suggesting that ESPN should address the situation more directly. However, it's worth noting that networks often prefer to let controversies like this blow over, rather than drawing more attention to them through official statements. For both networks, the feud highlighted the challenges of managing on-air personalities who are hired precisely because they offer strong, sometimes controversial opinions. The line between provocative sports analysis and inappropriate personal attacks can be blurry, and networks must constantly navigate these boundaries. As the immediate firestorm of the controversy begins to settle, questions remain about what this feud might mean for both RG3 and Ryan Clark's futures in sports media. For RG3, this incident has once again put his interracial marriage and racial identity in the spotlight, a recurring theme throughout his public life. His forceful defense of his family and identity may resonate with viewers who appreciate his authenticity and willingness to stand up for himself, but it also keeps these personal aspects of his life in the public conversation when he might prefer to focus on sports analysis. For Clark, the backlash to his comments might prompt reflection on how he approaches sensitive topics like race and identity in his analysis. While some viewers appreciated his perspective, others felt he crossed the line by making assumptions about RG3's personal life and racial identity based on his marriage. Navigating the aftermath of this controversy will require careful consideration of how he addresses these issues moving forward. Both men have built successful post-playing careers as sports analysts, with RG3 at Fox Sports and Clark at ESPN. Their ability to move past this controversy and refocus on sports analysis will depend on how they address it in the coming weeks and months. It will also depend on how viewers and network executives perceive their handling of the situation. As this controversy continues to evolve, it will be worth watching how both men navigate its aftermath and what lessons the broader sports media industry might learn from this very public and personal feud. The intersection of sports analysis, racial identity, and personal boundaries will remain a challenging terrain to navigate, but perhaps this incident can lead to more thoughtful and respectful conversations about these important issues in the future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.